I am Margaret, 62 years old. I live alone in Port Clinton, Ohio, a small town on the shores of Lake Erie. Winters here are severe. Everyone in the town knows each other. I worked as a social worker for the public school system and have been retired for 3 years. I live alone in the house my husband left me before he passed away. The house next door is where a boy named Liam lived with his mother, a woman I disliked. The reason why will become clear in the story I'm about to tell. I often saw Liam sitting on the front steps, wearing a thin jacket in the sub-zero cold, gazing into the distance. He was a freshman in high school, 14 years old, but small for his age, like a 7-year-old boy. I observed him and suspected he might be autistic, as he would sometimes repeat phrases or stare at a point in space for a long time. But he was gentle, polite, and always smiled widely whenever I brought over cookies. His mother was different. She often yelled at him, leaving Liam hungry and cold. I remember one day in mid-December, when the snow was falling heavily. I saw Liam walk out of his house, wearing a thin coat, his face flushed and his eyes swollen. The boy was clearly unwell. I waved, but he didn't see me. He walked slowly to the bus stop, his shoulders slumped. I wondered why his mother would let him go to school in such a poor condition. I watched until Liam got on the bus, then went back inside to make coffee. Around 11 a.m., I saw the school bus stop in front of the house. Liam stepped off, looking even worse than he had that morning. He staggered toward the door. Liam knocked several times, but there was no response. I was about to go out, but my phone rang. It was my daughter calling. I answered, talking for a few minutes. When I looked out the window again, Liam was gone. I assumed the boy had managed to get inside the house. I returned to my cleaning and baked some extra cookies, planning to take them over to Liam. That afternoon, I knocked on their door, but no one answered. The house was completely silent. The next day, I didn't see Liam go to school as usual. It wasn't until the end of the day that I learned Liam was missing. His mother called the police, saying he hadn't returned home since the previous day. The police came to ask questions, and I recounted everything I had witnessed. In the days that followed, the whole town participated in the search for Liam. We searched the park, the lakeside, and the woods near the town. I joined every search effort for Liam, constantly praying for his safe return. But weeks passed. Christmas came and went in silence. The new year began with no news of Liam. The police speculated that the boy might have taken a train to Cleveland or Columbus, looking for his older sister or another relative. They suggested Liam might be living on the streets or have been taken in by someone. But I always had a strong feeling that something terrible had happened. In mid-February, a real estate agent went to check on the abandoned house at the end of my block, preparing it for an open house viewing. He reported a strange odor coming from the fireplace. A chimney sweep was called in. When he shone his flashlight down the chimney, he immediately called the police. The police arrived and had to tear down a section of the wall to retrieve what was inside. It was Liam's body. Only after the police intervention did the cruel truth about the woman Liam called Mother gradually surface. Liam had been suffering from a severe flu that day. He had a high fever, was shivering, his face was red, and he was dizzy. But his mother still forced him to go to school as usual, just because she didn't want him home, bothering her. It was the last day of school before the long holiday break. Perhaps she just wanted to get him out of the house for her peace. By mid-morning, Liam's condition worsened. The school called and requested that she pick him up, but she didn't answer. They called again repeatedly. She refused and eventually turned off her phone completely. Finally, the school had no choice but to send Liam home early by bus. Upon returning home, Liam found the door locked from the inside. His mother was not home. He didn't have a key, and it was bitterly cold outside, snowing non-stop. The police believe Liam waited for a while, then walked around the block trying to find a way in. He eventually came to the abandoned house at the end of the street. Perhaps in his fatigue and despair, he thought the chimney was the only entrance. Perhaps he remembered Christmas cartoons, thinking it was a way to get inside, to shelter temporarily until his mother returned. But that was a mistake he couldn't undo. The chimney narrowed near the fireplace. He got stuck in the narrow section, unable to climb up or slide down. He likely cried for help, but the empty house, thick walls, and heavy snow swallowed every sound. Liam died of hypothermia. The medical examiner said he might have died within a few hours. When the news spread, the whole town was submerged in grief. It was unbelievable that during all the weeks we searched everywhere, the boy was just 3 houses away from his own home. It's horrifying to think about what Liam must have endured up until his final moment. The school organized a week of psychological counseling. They held a pink day to commemorate Liam by having everyone wear a pink ribbon. Pink was Liam's favorite color. His mother was arrested for child neglect and abuse leading to death. She didn't cry during the trial. She just sat there, staring down at the table, saying nothing. I sat in the courtroom, looked at her, and felt a profound anger. Liam was truly unlucky to have such an irresponsible and cold-hearted mother. But I also felt guilt. I knew Liam was being mistreated and needed help, but I didn't do enough. Liam needed someone to step up and say, "This child is being abused," but I didn't do that. That is how the small town of Port Clinton began, the new year in tragedy and sorrow. That house remains empty to this day. Liam's mother is in prison, and no one wants to buy the house. The house at the end of the street is the same. No one wants to live in the house where a child died. Every time it snows, I think of Liam. I wonder if I had done things differently, if I had called Child Protective Services sooner, if I had opened my door that day instead of answering the phone. Things would have been different. A few years ago, right after I turned 18, my family, including my parents, my 11-year-old brother Evan, and me, decided to have a different kind of Christmas holiday. We left the suburbs of Ontario to visit a forest area, renting a set of hunting cabins. We set off around 2 p.m. on Christmas Day. My mother wanted a rustic, nature-centric Christmas experience. We brought along our German Shepherd Ranger. He's a gentle but extremely protective dog, especially of Evan. We arrived at the cabin area around 4 p.m. It was a small cluster of cabins scattered throughout the woods. The weather was already freezing, and snow had begun to fall. We quickly moved our belongings into the cabin and started enjoying Christmas Eve by playing games together. My dad had prepared his hunting rifle in a bag, placing it under the bed where I would be sleeping. He usually keeps the gun locked in a case, but since we planned to go hunting the next morning, he left it there. Around 10 p.m., Evan and I were tired and decided to go to bed. Our room was at the end of the cabin, facing a river. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to Ranger's low growling. Initially, I didn't find it strange because my dad often suffered from insomnia and would sit in the living room watching TV, and Ranger would usually growl at any minor noise. However, this time I noticed no light was cast from under my door. My dad never sat in the dark. I whispered to Ranger to be quiet so Evan could sleep, but the growling quickly turned into barking, waking Evan up. Just then, our bedroom door suddenly flew open and the light snapped on. My eyes were dazzled, and when I adjusted, I saw my dad standing in the doorway, eyes wide and face pale. He asked, "Were you two laughing?" I replied, "No." He walked over, pulled open our bedroom curtains, stared into the darkness outside for a moment, and then closed the curtains. He simply said, "It's nothing. Go back to sleep." turned off the light and left. I found my dad's behavior eerie and couldn't fall back asleep. I started at almost every sound for the rest of the night. Around 4 a.m., just as I was dozing off, I heard a strange sound outside the window. It was the distinct crunch of footsteps, not the sounds of an animal. I felt an extreme fear and pulled the blanket over my head. Then, I heard a light tapping on the window, which lasted for a few seconds. Ranger was awake now too. He turned his face toward the window, ears pointed straight out, listening intently. The tapping returned, louder than before, making Ranger bare his teeth and growl. Then, the scariest thing happened. A low, hoarse voice whispered, "I know you're in there, little one," followed by a chilling invitation. "Why don't you come out and play with me?" Initially, I thought it was someone from a neighboring cabin playing a joke, maybe a group of teens also on holiday. I leaned forward and slightly parted the curtain to look out, ready to give them a piece of my mind for scaring us. But the person standing outside was far from normal. Under the dim light from the cabin's porch lamp, I saw an older man wearing a shaggy blue costume, exactly like the Grinch, the Christmas-stealing goblin from the movie. The lower half of his face was covered by a mask, but his eyes darted back and forth and his matted hair were enough to send a chill down my spine. His filthy hand was stroking the window pane as he whispered and gasped for breath. Anger replaced fear, and I immediately switched to protective mode. I grabbed my dad's hunting rifle from under the bed, pulled the curtains shut, and yelled, "Get lost, or I'll shoot!" The old man's eyes widened, and a horrible smile appeared on his face. Ranger started barking louder than ever. He was ready to attack at any moment. My parents heard the commotion and quickly rushed into the room, turning on the light. My mom screamed when she saw the old man through the window, while my dad yelled at him, telling him the police were on their way. In those few chaotic seconds, I noticed his blue furry costume was torn in places and covered in snow. He stood there for a few seconds, his eyes manic, then turned and bolted into the woods. Evan was terrified. He remained silent, a look of panic etched on his face throughout. In that moment, all I felt was anger and immense gratitude that I had the gun. The police caught the old man a few minutes later. A few days later, I learned that he was a homeless man living in the woods and suffering from mental health issues. The Grinch costume was found in his backpack, along with some old toys and a small knife. This terrified me when I thought about what could have happened to Evan if I hadn't been there. That night, we didn't dare to sleep in our cabin anymore and requested to move to an empty one nearby, closer to the management office. Only much later did my dad reveal the truth. He said he knew someone was lurking around our cabin, so he deliberately left the rifle under my bed in case I needed to defend myself, but he didn't want to scare us. My dad had called the police after hearing the man laugh and sing a creepy nursery rhyme, then growl a fake Grinch voice right outside his own bedroom window. That was the last Christmas my family spent in the woods. It took a very long time for Evan to sleep well on winter nights, and I still check the windows carefully before going to bed. And I will never forget the manic look in the eyes of the man in the Grinch costume that day. San Diego's always hot in July, but I'd never felt this cold in my life. 2 days later, the cops found my daughter Lily in a storm drain near the pier. My neighbor had seen Lily with some guy on the beach. That's what kicked off the manhunt. Only took 3 days before they tracked him down. Roland Cooper, 43. The forensics team said Lily died from asphyxiation. Her lungs were full of water. At least she didn't suffer too long. I kept telling myself that, like it would somehow help. Every night I held onto her clothes, breathing in what was left of her smell before it vanished for good. I didn't say a word unless I absolutely had to. Didn't sleep unless I was dead tired. The trial kicked off on a gray, miserable morning at the San Diego County Courthouse. It was drizzling, light but steady. I couldn't cry anymore. The tears had dried up weeks ago, ever since they found Lily's body. All that was left was this cold, hollow feeling and a slow-burning anger I couldn't shake. Cooper sat there in cuffs, looking way too normal. He glanced at me once, then quickly looked away. That was the moment I first thought it. Could I kill someone? The prosecutor laid everything out. Lily had been lured off the beach. Cooper's DNA was on her clothes. They even had footage from a convenience store camera. His car was parked right by the storm drain. I just stared at the floor as they read out the forensics report pics. I clutched the hem of my shirt, my whole body shaking as I listened to one forensic conclusion after another. Then the trial wrapped up for the day, but I couldn't process a damn thing. My mind was frozen, numb from fear and grief. Day 2 was worse. I had to sit through the defense trying to twist everything. They said the evidence was all circumstantial. No one actually saw Cooper hurt Lily. They claimed the DNA made sense because he had just helped her find her way home. Total bullshit. Lies. But day 3, it changed everything. I was in the second row, eyes locked on Cooper as he took the stand. He looked too calm. Meanwhile, I was shaking with rage. How could he be so composed when my daughter was dead and my entire world had been shattered? Did you kill Lily Martinez? The judge asked the question that cut right through me. Number, I didn't hurt her, he said. His voice didn't even waver. Then he started in on this story, so twisted, so unbelievable, I had to grip the edge of my chair just to stay upright. Lily told me her father had done bad things to her, he said, staring down at his hands like some broken soul. She came up to me on the beach, not the other way around, like everyone's saying. I felt the blood drain from my face. My ex left when Lily was 4, but he never hurt her, and Lily'd never walk up to a stranger. She said she'd tell everyone I touched her if I didn't give her money. Cooper kept going, his voice shaking now, like he was putting on some damn performance. I panicked because of my record. I just wanted to talk, explain she couldn't say stuff like that. My mind was spinning with rage. He was dragging my daughter's name, who was gone because she couldn't defend herself, through the dirt. He was up there, in front of God and everyone, dragging my daughter's name through the mud. She started screaming, and I just wanted her to be quiet. I didn't mean to. I covered her mouth, and then everything happened so fast. I stood up, slipped my hand into my pocket, felt the weight of the gun. I couldn't let him keep going. Not one more lie. Nobody even noticed me. All eyes were locked on Cooper and that sick story of his. I lifted the gun, calm as anything. 3 bangs, the shots cracked through the courtroom like thunder. I watched him drop, eyes wide in shock, blood blooming across his white shirt like spilled paint. The whole courtroom blew up. I didn't move, just stood there, the gun still in my hand. I didn't fight back. The guards rushed me, tackled me to the floor. The gun slipped out of my grip, clattering across the tiles. For my daughter. That's all I whispered as they cuffed me. In the cold of the cell, I found something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. There was nothing left to be afraid of. All the worst things I ever feared, they already happened. There was nothing left that could break me more. Time didn't feel real behind bars. Days blurred together. I thought of Lily almost every night. I'd picture her running down the beach, laughing, the waves chasing at her heels. That laugh of hers, it still made me smile. I didn't regret what I did, wasn't proud of it either. But I got it. Love and hate, they're not that different. They both come from the same place, deep down, where the heart breaks and still keeps beating anyway. This story is based on real events. In 1980, in Lübeck, Germany, a 7-year-old girl named Anna Mary was kidnapped and murdered by Klaus Grabowski, a man with a long history of abusing children. He lured Anna into his home and killed her. At his trial in 1981, Grabowski claimed Anna had blackmailed him, saying she'd lie about being abused by her father. That testimony enraged Anna's mother, Marianne Bachmeier, and on the third day of the trial, she walked into the courtroom with a gun and shot Grabowski dead. Marianne was arrested on the spot. She was tried separately and eventually sentenced to 3 years in prison. The public was torn, while Marianne always said she did it to defend her daughter's honor. She passed away from cancer in 1996 and was buried beside Anna.
The baby in my belly has 2 identical fathers. My husband and I are both 32 years old this year. We have gone through our youth together as companions. I have a light office job while my husband is an oil engineer. Our life together is materially abundant, but lacking in emotional connection. My husband's job requires a lot of time. He might come home to visit only once every few weeks or even months. We have been planning to have a child for a long time, but because of that reason, we haven't been able to do it yet. One evening, I was lying in bed, reading quite late in my room, when a knock on the living room door echoed. Looking at the clock, it was almost 10 p.m., and I wondered about the guest outside. Not opening the door right away, I asked who was standing outside, but all I got in response was silence. I also remained silent, neither speaking nor opening the door, and the knocking echoed again. I stood there for a few minutes without responding, while the person outside was quite patient, knocking at the door in a steady rhythm from beginning to end. I took a deep breath, grasped the doorknob tightly, and cracked the door open to look outside. The first thing I saw was a bright red color from the roses. A strong force pushed the door wide open. My husband held a bouquet of flowers and said loudly, "Surprise, my love." I was overwhelmed, ran to hug him tightly, feeling both joyful and sentimental, and I burst into tears. "Why did you come back in the middle of the night like this?" "I missed you so much, I snuck back and have to leave first thing tomorrow morning." "Buff, your voice sounds strange. Are you not feeling well?" I asked worriedly while placing my hand on his forehead. He gently took my hand and placed a kiss on it, saying, "I'm fine. I just want to be by your side." The next morning when I woke up, my husband had already left without a word. Feeling empty and lost, I cried again. Once I calmed down, I started a new day like usual. When I stepped out of the house to go to work, I was quite surprised to see strange footprints right at the entrance. They were very large, somewhat distorted, probably 1.5 times the size of an adult man's foot. This spot, did Buff stand here last night? I wondered, but I set the thought aside to head to work, and I completely forgot about those footprints. After that, my husband and I kept in touch every evening. I remembered his request from that night to never mention that he had stuck back to visit me. Until one day, I was late for my period. A woman's intuition kicked in, so I bought a pregnancy test, and I cried out in joy when I found out that I was pregnant. Unable to contain my emotions, I quickly called Buff to share this happiness with him. "My love," I spoke in a shaky voice, still unable to calm down. "What's wrong, my love? Are you okay?" "Buff, I'm so happy. We're going to have a baby." I held up the test strip with 2 very dark lines in front of the phone camera. "When did this happen, my love?" My husband was very surprised. "I'm pretty sure it was from the night you came to visit me last month." "Last month? Cassie, I haven't been home in almost 4 months. I froze when I heard those words from my husband, his tone incredibly serious. Buff, you know joking like that isn't funny. That night at 10 p.m., you came back unexpectedly to visit me and left the very next morning. My husband and I had a tense argument. I was certain about my story, but I felt confused and frustrated by Buff's attitude. He was equally certain of his viewpoint and even seemed to doubt me a little. I hung up the phone, feeling both hurt and disappointed. A sudden knock on the door echoed, and this time, the person outside spoke up.
Cassie, my love, I'm back.
Side story. Buff, unable to reach his wife for 2 days, grew worried and decided to take a leave of absence to return home immediately. Buff was shocked to find the house in disarray, with furniture toppled and scattered across the floor. From the sofa on the floor to the walls, everything was stained with a layer of dried reddish brown. The pregnancy test with 2 clearly visible lines was found on the floor. After forensic analysis of the pregnancy test, which had the dried reddish-brown stains in the house, they confirmed it belonged to Cassie, Buff's wife. But where was she? The terrible truth of what had happened to Cassie remained a mystery. Cassie's diary was found a week after her mysterious disappearance. Some entries from the diary were revealed, and people in the town began to speculate. They proposed various theories to explain the incident, with the most convincing argument gaining traction among many, the appearance of a skinwalker. From disguising himself as Buff on that fateful night, to the unusually large footprints in front of the house, and finally, Cassie's mysterious disappearance.
I am Gray, 14 years old. I have just moved in with my grandmother because my parents are serving prison sentences. I had a younger brother, but he passed away when he was 3 months old. I can't clearly remember the last time I felt truly happy. My family was once financially well off, but everything fell apart when my mother's nursing license expired and my father was laid off from his job. We lived in a small house, devoid of warmth or cheerful conversations. Love gradually became a scarce and luxurious commodity in my family. I constantly had to face my parents' arguments at any time of the day. That made me feel fed up, tired, and suffocated every time I came home. Many times, I quickly brought my dinner to my room and locked the door before everything could be thrown to the ground. Sitting in my room, I put on my headphones, turned the music up loud, and started eating, not realizing when the tears started to fall. Since I was little, I've always felt a strong, burning smell in the house, especially in my parents' room. The smell made me uncomfortable and curious, but every time I asked about it, I only received cold stares and scolding. I didn't understand what was happening until I was old enough to realize that it was drugs. My parents were always dazed, their eyes vacant, smiling with no reason, and their actions out of control. I felt like a ghost in this house, always silently observing and never being noticed. The feeling of loneliness clung to me, even though I tried to find something, anything, from the place I called family. One day during dinner, my mother announced that she was pregnant. I screamed with joy, thinking that I would finally have a younger sibling, a companion. I no longer have to be alone, and maybe everything will change. However, my parents' reaction made me feel a strange sense of anxiety. My parents looked at each other with a confused gaze and a hint of discomfort. Anyway, I still hold on to the hope that everything will get better. During the first few prenatal visits, my mom always took me along. Although Dad stayed at home, he always said he was busy. When I found out I would have a little brother, my excitement doubled. I imagined moments of playing, talking, and how I would protect him. That was also the last time Mom went for a prenatal checkup, as far as I remember. The day my little brother was born, I couldn't believe my eyes. He was so tiny, fragile, with pale skin and red spots. I overheard the doctors telling my parents that my little brother was born addicted and that his liver contained at least 2 types of stimulants. My mom and dad just stood there, indifferent, not showing any concern or sympathy. I wanted to get closer, but the nurse took him away. I couldn't do anything except stand and watch. My little brother was then adopted by another family as soon as he was discharged from the hospital, and my parents also underwent rehabilitation measures. The feeling of emptiness and disappointment returned. The house gradually lost its burnt smell, but the coldness couldn't be erased. Sometime later, my dad regained custody of my little brother after successfully completing rehab and passing the Child Welfare Agency's test. My mom also returned, and the family was reunited. I hoped deeply for a better future. That summer vacation, my parents signed me up for a camping trip a few hours' drive from home, which would last for 3 weeks. Although I didn't want to, not even a little, I was completely unable to resist. The first thing I noticed when I returned was that the house had a very unpleasant burnt smell again. My parents didn't even look at me, even though it had been 3 weeks since we last saw each other. I searched for my little brother, but I couldn't find him. Even his belongings were gone. I asked my parents many questions, but they just sat there staring at the ceiling with vacant expressions. That evening, the police came to the house and arrested my parents, leaving me in shock. My little brother had been neglected and passed away at the hands of my parents. I was taken to live with my grandmother to avoid the bad information and images. Still, I couldn't stop wondering about the lives of my little brother and me. Why were they so heartless? Why did we never receive the love that every child deserves? The story above is based on the true events of the couple Jessica and Daniel. Instead of building a happy family with a stable job as they once had, they became consumed by drugs. In 2018, Jessica discovered that she was unexpectedly pregnant. She didn't go for prenatal checkups during 2/3 of her pregnancy because she was afraid the doctor would find out that she had been using drugs. Even during labor, Jessica's face was emotionless, showing no sign of pain. That was an indication of the effects of drugs. As a result, their second son, Dylan, was born a month early, and it was discovered that his liver contained at least 2 types of drugs. This cruel couple neglected the child, causing Dylan's death, and chose to hide his body in an abandoned well next to the church. After several attempts, the police managed to retrieve an object consisting of 2 milk baskets secured together with 3 padlocks, 12 plastic ties, and 8 electrical wires. They were sentenced to life imprisonment without parole for Jessica and 47 years in prison for Daniel. Life is not without cases of child abuse and neglect, or parents who refuse to raise their children, and this is an act that is utterly reprehensible. I'm Chasey. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings, and my little sister Lauren is 8. This is the unforgettable story of me and my sister's crazy and scary Christmas Eve last year. My family wasn't like those TV families with a Christmas tree loaded with presents or a cozy dinner by the fire. My dad worked hard, but we were still struggling with money. My mom, who was really my stepmom, drank a lot and barely cared about us. That Christmas Eve, my dad drove 3 hours to work. My stepmom got drunk and passed out in the afternoon, leaving us to take care of ourselves. I still wanted to make a good memory for Lauren. I'd saved up some money from my part-time job to buy Lauren a little gift, a dog keychain she really liked. When I gave her the gift, Lauren's eyes lit up, and her big smile made me feel like all the effort was totally worth it. Lauren surprised me even more. She gave me a handmade card with a thank you note and cute little drawings. A weird, warm feeling spread through my heart. We sat next to each other, all curled up in a big blanket, eating popcorn and watching Christmas shows on the old TV. Everything felt calm and happy. But then, there was a sudden knock at the door. Lauren jumped up and yelled, "It's gotta be Dad!" and ran toward the door without thinking, but I quickly pulled her back. Before he left, Dad had told me real seriously, "Don't open the door to anyone. especially on Christmas Eve. That's when bad guys can take advantage of things. Lauren still wouldn't listen and kept trying to run to the door. She looked through the peephole and shouted, "It's Santa Claus!" "Chasey, open the door!" But I felt a sense of unease rising in my heart. I looked through the peephole and saw a guy in a red suit and a Santa hat. But the look in his eyes was nothing like I'd imagine a nice Santa would have. His cold stare at the door made my skin crawl. I pulled Lauren away from the door, trying to sound firm. "You can't open the door. That's not Dad, and it's definitely not Santa." The guy outside started using a sweet voice, saying he just wanted to give us presents. But I wasn't fooled. I yelled through the door, telling him to leave. Instead of giving up, he got even more patient. The knocking got louder, more regular, and kept going. He pulled some stuff out of his pocket and started messing with the lock. My heart was pounding, and Lauren was shaking as she clung to me. I pulled Lauren over to the landline to call my dad, but the phone was dead, and my sisters and I just got more and more freaked out. At this point, I decided to call 911, but the operator didn't believe me and thought we were just messing around. I felt totally helpless and hopeless. Meanwhile, Lauren ran upstairs to wake up her stepmom, but nothing could get her to wake up. Lauren ran back down, hugged me, and then just broke down in tears. Outside, the sound of the door being broken down kept getting louder, and the creepy guy's laugh sounded like he was enjoying watching my sisters and me freak out. I had to come up with a way to fix this situation. I looked around the living room and stopped when I saw the smoke alarm on the ceiling. An idea popped into my head. I decided to create an emergency so the fire department would come and help us. I grabbed a roll of tissue, lit a small candle, and held it up to the smoke alarm. The fire alarm went off loud, and about 10 minutes later, I heard the fire truck siren. We sighed in relief when we saw the headlights shining through the window. But what was even crazier was the guy outside the door suddenly yelling really loud. He said he was our dad, pretending to be Santa Claus, but got stuck outside. His voice came through urgently, asking the firefighters to break down the door. The fear that hadn't completely gone away hit me even harder. My hands were freezing, but the worry about my sister's safety and mine made me feel stronger than ever. I knew that right then, I had to act fast. I remembered the family photo hanging on the wall in the living room. I quickly grabbed the photo, ran out, and cracked the door open, holding it up with shaky hands. I told the firefighters everything that happened. The guy outside wasn't my dad. He was a scammer who'd tricked us and was trying to break down the door. When the firefighters gave him suspicious looks, the creep immediately turned to run but got held back. The police were called right away, and the guy was quickly restrained. Once the situation was settled, the firefighters called my dad's work to let him know about the emergency. My dad came straight home that night. When he found out what happened, he was really mad. He and my stepmom got into a huge argument and then decided to get a divorce. My dad said that me and my sisters were the most important things in the world. My dad also switched jobs so he could spend more time taking care of us. That Christmas Eve was super scary, but it also made me realize how much power and responsibility I have as the oldest sister. And most importantly, it brought a change to my family, a new start to a better life, one without fear or lack of love.
My name's Anna, 24 years old. I've just started working in a small firm in San Francisco. My job was a customer service representative. I lived alone in my apartment some 20 minutes away from my work. My boyfriend lived in that same city as I was, but due to our conflicting schedules, we could only see each other on weekends. My first week in the new company was pretty uneventful. Everything was good. In my office, I met my two newest colleagues, Alice and Oliver. They're pretty nice, friendly, and generous. On the last weekday, we decided to have a night out after finishing the weekly workload. Alice told me that it's to celebrate my first week in the office, so needless to say, I couldn't say no to that. Even if I did have a plan with my boyfriend already. So I told him about that and had to readjust our own plan for the weekend. After work, we arrived to a nightclub not far from our workplace. To be honest, I hated being here. The music was too loud that we literally need to scream just to say anything. Also, the flashing lights were very discomfortingly annoying. That's just me and my feeling. Though I know that bars and clubs were a rather popular destination, but I think it wasn't for me. I didn't remember for how long I was there. The cocktails was surely no friend with my empty stomach. I don't feel so good, guys, I told Alice and Oliver. The two colleagues happily left with me, even though I knew clearly that they still wanted to have more fun. Leaving the bar, all I wanted to do was to go home. Yet Oliver had another proposal. "We haven't got dinner yet, right?" He then suggested a restaurant that specialized in foie gras. Alice immediately voted for it excitedly. I, however, upon checking the time, wondering what restaurant was still open at 10 p.m. "That restaurant serves overnight, gal," he said. Two of them kind of dragged me into it, and there was no way for me to say no. The voyage there was kind of long and uneventful. It was the constant nagging of a hungry Alice pushing Oliver to drive faster. And me, I was just too tired to say anything. I just wanted to get over it quickly so I could go to bed. It's exactly midnight when Oliver stopped his ride in front of a small restaurant deep in the back alleys. A gentleman greeted us on our way. He introduced himself as Joey, a jack of all trade for this small establishment. Interesting. The restaurant was kinda neat, though the three of us were the only customers here. After settling down, Oliver asked for the restaurant's signature dish, while Alice was busy with choosing the beverage section. Two of them continued with their usual office gossip. Alice, since she wouldn't be driving, enjoyed her drink, while I was at my limit for alcohol consumption today. My phone rang. It was my boyfriend calling me. I went outside the restaurant for some privacy. My boyfriend was pretty worried, wondering when I would go home and whether I needed a ride. Talking with him, feeling his care, filled me with joy. Then I darted my eyes around, seeing a girl dressed in white sitting across the alleyway. Saying goodbye to my darling, I came over to check on her. She kept staring into the green shrub. Her eyes widened worriedly. "Are you all right, miss?" I asked. I'm looking for something of mine." Her voice was somewhat odd. It was very quiet, with a hint of a slight echo. I asked her whether she needed my help finding it, and she declined, saying she's going to find it soon. Seeing I was not needed, I said goodbye to her and went back inside. By the time I returned, Oliver and Alice was kinda tipsy. "What's a handsome boss like you doing here all alone?" Alice, inebriated, made a joke toward the restaurant owner. "Well, I had a few other female staff, but recently they'd left without any solid reasons, and I am still looking for their replacement. You see, I only hire female staffs." His answer made Alice laugh. She clearly enjoyed the conversation. "Well, I'm Alice, and is there any vacancy here for me?" "You're quite all right, Alice, but your friend seems to be a better candidate." The man then glanced at me, lowering down the dish on the table. His smirk gave me the creeps. I shuddered at that glance. Oliver laughed at the scene as if he had sensed my uneasiness. Seeing my hands were not very clean, I went to the bathroom to wash it before the meal. There, I suddenly heard a woman, seemed like she was crying. "Who's there? Is everything okay?" In the stall was a young girl, turning her back on me, burying her face into her hands, crying a lot. It seemed that she's wearing a waitress uniform of this restaurant. "Is everything okay, miss?" Hearing me, she stopped crying. then slowly turned around to me. Suddenly, she lifted her face up, arms stretched toward me. Startled by her sudden movement, I quickly turned from surprise to terror once seeing her face up close. Her face was torn to pieces, with exposed flesh hanging open everywhere, and her eye sockets were empty. All over her body, there was crimson red fluid soaking through the clothes. "Bring it back to me! Bring it back!" She tried to reach to me, crying in pain. I quickly booked out of the restroom, rushed over to my 2 coworkers. I told them what happened, yet they were not buying it. When the 3 of us arrived at the scene, the woman was nowhere to be found. Alice and Oliver laughed out loud, telling me that I've drunken too much tonight. But I wasn't drunk at all. To be fair, I was more sober than the 2 of them. Back to our table, we didn't see the owner there anymore. Alice told me to quickly eat up to leave this establishment. But as soon as I sat down on the table, I felt unease from a staring woman on another table. This was the white outfit woman I saw outside earlier. "Have you found it yet?" I asked. "Almost there," she answered. "What happened, Anna? Who are you talking to?" Oliver, eyebrows raised, opened up to me. I told him that I had seen that woman a while ago, and now she's in the diner with us. Alice and Oliver laughed, claiming that I was joking around because there's nobody there. But I swore that she was still there, still staring at me across the diner. "I have found it. That's my liver." The woman, crying out loud, pointed her finger into the piece of meat on my dish. Her words frightened me to the point that I literally dropped the dish off the table. Alice and Oliver was dumbfounded by what happened. They could only look at me worryingly. At the same time, the tattered woman from the restroom came over crying, "Give me back my body!" Both women rushed into me, yelling out a blood-curdling scream. That's it. My flight response overwhelmed me. I screamed and did all that I could to get out of that damned restaurant. A taxi flashing its headlight toward me when I was trying to run away. In my head, all the frightening scenes crashed back before it all turned to darkness. When I came to my senses, I was in the hospital with my worried boyfriend and 2 concerned colleagues. When asked about what happened there at the restaurant, I said nothing. I just wanted to forget all those scary things. A week later, I was discharged from the hospital. It was when I heard from Oliver that the restaurant owner had recently passed away. His body was discovered to be disemboweled, with all internal organs being forcefully removed. The only evidence they found at the scene was a chef knife that only had his fingerprints on it. Maybe I was the only person knowing what terrible thing had happened there to the female staffs. And you know what? I think he deserved it.
I am Emily, and I've been working as a cashier at Starbucks for over 3 years. The store is in a very convenient location, right in the city center, so it's very busy and operates 24/7. That also means that we employees have to work night shifts. That's also the time when horror stories come to life. That day was the weekend, and my shift was the night shift. It was past 11 o'clock, but the store was still quite crowded. As usual, when there was temporarily no cashier work, I would stand and observe around the store. And then I caught that gaze, a gentle look from the blue eyes of a young man sitting in the left corner of the store. I quickly smiled and slightly bowed my head in a polite greeting to him, as is customary for someone in customer service. I was a bit impressed. Even from just a quick glance,
his chiseled face and slightly curly brown hair, everything perfectly fitting my ideal type. A moment later, I caught that gaze again. Is he looking at me? I was caught up in my thoughts when, "Oh!" I exclaimed as I looked up, and he was standing right in front of me. "Sorry, did I startle you?" His voice is impressive too, I thought to myself. "Oh no, not at all. Is there something you need?" "Well, I need to know your name." He smiled lightly and fixed that gaze on me. "Stephen." Seeing that I didn't respond, he took the initiative to introduce himself and extended his hand. Emily," I replied, but didn't return the handshake. Stephen smiled awkwardly, took a chocolate bar out of the Starbucks paper bag, and placed it in front of me. I'm giving a little bit of bitterness to the sweet girl to create the perfect combination. Stephen smiled and then walked away. I didn't have time to react, just staring blankly after him until another customer came up to pay. I quickly put the chocolate bar away and got back to my work. 3 days later, when I had the night shift again, Stephen appeared once again. He flashed a bright smile when he saw my surprise. "Finally, we meet again." I didn't respond, just smiled lightly. "Do you not like dark chocolate? It seems like you haven't eaten it, right?" Stephen's question caught me off guard. "How did you know?" "Oh no, please choose another flavor you like." Stephen offered me 3 other chocolate bars. "Oh, thanks a lot, but there are still many people behind me who need to pay," Stephen subtly reminded me. I randomly picked a candy bar in the middle and thanked Stephen. "This flavor is great too. Make sure to enjoy it." Stephen handed me another chocolate bar and then walked away. "Thank you." I felt a little intrigued, but mostly confused by Stephen's enthusiasm and his somewhat strange remarks. Stephen must be impressed by my appearance. I knew it and felt confident about it, as many people had flirted with me since I started working here. In reality, I'm already 35 years old, have gone through a painful marriage, and am now a single mother to a charming 4-year-old boy. I built a protective wall around myself. The broken marriage made me more cautious about everything. I didn't eat the chocolate that Stephen gave me because I had a mild allergy to the protein in chocolate, which would cause dizziness and a rapid heartbeat. That night, the store was quite empty for the start of the week. I was cleaning around and took out the chocolate bars I received from Stephen, gave one to the barista, and chatted with him. In a sudden moment, I saw a figure outside the window as I was standing behind the counter. When our eyes met, the person moved quickly. I only had time to notice one distinct feature: bright blue eyes. "Blue eyes," I muttered, feeling doubtful. The sound of something crashing loudly from the barista counter startled me. I hurried into the area, and the staff member was sitting on the floor, surrounded by broken glasses and scattered bottles of ingredients. "Peter, are you okay?" I asked, panic rising in my voice. "Emily, I'm feeling dizzy." "How did this happen? You were fine earlier." "It seems since I ate your chocolate bar." Peter's words left me stunned. Peter started showing symptoms of vomiting and fainting. I quickly called emergency services. My instincts kicked in, and I quickly locked all the doors and windows of the store. I called to inform the manager about Peter's condition, and most importantly, called the police. I rummaged through the trash to find the wrapper of the candy Peter had eaten. I carefully examined the ingredients list and the expiration date. And then, what sent a chill down my spine wasn't the details on the wrapper, but the countless tiny pinpricks all over it, like they were made with the tip of a needle.
I checked the other 2 chocolate bars, and my heart started racing faster with each passing moment. Both had slight deformities, with the wrappers showing puncture marks, as if they had been pricked with needles. Peeling back the chocolate bar, I noticed needle marks on the surface as well, ones that were very hard to detect unless you looked closely. In some areas, there were even slight bulges, as if something had been injected into them. The police arrived and I provided them with all the details of the incident, describing Stephen's appearance as thoroughly as I could. After being treated and diagnosed with poisoning, it was confirmed that the source was the chocolate bar Peter had eaten. The other 2 bars also contained similar toxins. Stephen was still being actively searched for by the police, and his image was widely circulated in news broadcasts and articles. However, the police discovered that his name wasn't Stephen, and there were no personal records of him in the database. I continued with my work, equipping myself with additional protective tools and taking the lesson to be even more vigilant.
I'm Jax. I was 31 years old. I thought I was handsome with blonde hair, blue eyes, over 6 feet tall. There are many interesting persons I've met, but I'm still waiting for the one who's really right for me. On the flight back to visit my family that summer, after all the check-ins, I sat waiting for the boarding time. A man sitting in the opposite row looked at me intently. He has toned muscles, healthy brown skin, curly hair, and a high nose bridge. He wore an elegant black suit. I think he was on the same flight as me. The flight was suddenly delayed by 2 hours because the destination was having bad weather. I had to play games on my phone to pass the time. About 30 minutes later, I was startled to see that man still looking at me, smiling, friendly, and waving. I was a bit surprised and waved back. I was actually quite impressed with that appearance. He proactively approached, introduced himself as Alex, 33 years old, and working as an engineer in Texas, which is also my hometown, coincidentally. He said he noticed me from the first time he saw me. That's right, he's gay, and so am I. People like us will have a special feeling about people who are similar to us. Alex and I follow each other's Instagrams. I want to get to know Alex better. The flight finally took off, and we sat quite far apart. Landing at the Texas airport, I got my luggage back. Alex pulled 2 suitcases and happily walked towards me. We asked each other about the next destination. Alex said there was another package. Alex asked me to hold the 2 suitcases and quickly return to the baggage gate. I didn't think much and happily agreed to wait for Alex. But he hadn't come back for 30 minutes. Looking at the clock, it was almost 10 p.m. Another 15 minutes passed. I tried contacting Alex via Instagram several times, but to no avail. Both mine and Alex's luggage were 4 large suitcases. I couldn't drag them all over the airport to find him. Hunger and fatigue made me frustrated. Alex called me back, apologizing very much for keeping me waiting. Because something unexpected happened, Alex left the airport first. Alex told me to go to the address he texted and sent a private driver to the airport to pick me up. He wanted to invite me to his house for a meal to thank him. I felt better after receiving Alex's call. Alex's personal driver is a man taller than me, with a fierce face. The car he picked me up in was quite old, cluttered with bottles and jars, making me feel uncomfortable. The driver took me to a small, shabby house on a deserted road. I looked around bewildered, got out of the car and went inside following the driver's instructions. The house was dimly lit, had a strong, musty smell, and had an indescribable cold feeling. I walked very slowly, looked around as I walked. the driver was still walking behind me and staring at me. I started to feel scared, told the driver to call Alex to come and get the suitcase back and I would wait here. He didn't answer or do anything, just stood there staring at me. Taking a few seconds to try to calm down, I quickly walked towards the door, saying as I walked that I had something urgent to do first and would text Alex later. The driver immediately stopped me. I was stunned. There was a noise behind me. Before I could figure things out, the driver grabbed my arms and restrained me. He forced me to go deeper into the dark house despite me asking a lot of questions. He pushed me into a room. In front of me was Alex with a strange smile holding a sharp knife. The room was cluttered with strange medical equipment, many of which were still covered in blood. On the wall hung many photos of different men. They will lose any part of their body or have knives or scissors close to their skin. Their expressions were extremely painful and panicked. The middle photo and also the largest photo is a photo of Alex and the driver taken together. They posed with extremely intimate gestures and smiles as if they were mocking viewers. So panicked, all I could do at that moment was run away. I tried to struggle away from the driver, but his strong grip held me firmly. Alex grabbed my hair with one hand and held it tight. His other hand slowly brought the knife towards me. I begged in fear, but Alex continued to bring the knife. Alex and the driver burst into perverted laughter and were extremely satisfied when they saw me begging and shaking. Just as the tip was about to touch my face, the loud sound of police outside surrounded the house. Alex and the driver looked out in surprise. I took the opportunity to get up and escape. Running outside, I saw 3 police officers, along with my father, looking at me worriedly. On the way with the strange driver, I had texted my dad about my situation and sent him the location. Luckily, he arrived in time. Alex and the other driver were arrested. They're actually a gay couple. They target gay people like me, terrifying them with blood and wounds, satisfying their perversion with screams and begging. Everything is completely different from the kind and handsome appearance that Alex has. His face and that disgusting smile still haunt my mind to this day. I'm Elon. I'm a high school student in Houston, Texas. I'm an open-minded individual and quite enjoy extracurricular activities at school. One time, my class was informed that they would participate in a community service cleanup session at a local park. Even though I wasn't very excited, being able to run outside was better than having to sit and study, I thought. It was Sunday morning. We arrived at the park at 9 o'clock and were assigned areas to clean. This park has just been built in recent weeks, and there are still some areas in the finishing stages. Me, Anna, and Max were assigned to clean up an area with a very large rock. It was high above my head and placed in a small flower garden. I observed the rock and saw that it had a very strange shape. There's also a cross engraved on the stone, but it seems to be upside down. I told Anna and Max, but they didn't pay attention to what I said. I guess I'm no expert in landscaping, I muttered. Ignoring the stone's strange appearance, we started cleaning. Max and Anna picked grass in the flower garden, and I will plant a few new flowers. We do this while chatting about interesting stories at school. As it neared the end, I started to smell a terrible stench. It was really nauseating. Anna and Max also noticed that unpleasant smell. We went around the area we were responsible for to find out the source, but didn't find anything unusual. At the end of the labor session, all of us were told to regroup. My team has thoroughly checked the area we are in charge of, so we are confident that everything is clean. It was probably some dead mice somewhere else, and the wind brought in the stench. We told each other that and happily left. A few days later, we organized a picnic ourselves at the park we cleaned, this time with Ethan and Mary. Returning to the flower garden the other day, we were happy because the newly planted flower trees were lush. My friends and I spread out the carpet next to it, ate together, chatted, and took pictures. About 15 minutes later, it suddenly started to rain. We quickly packed up our things and ran to a nearby shack to shelter from the rain. Where we were standing outside the rock, a brown liquid began flowing out. The stench rose again. This time it was much worse. We were stunned to see that strange thing and looked at each other, confusing and scared. About 20 minutes later, the rain stopped. Me, Max, and Ethan came closer for a better look. Mary and Anna fearfully huddled in the shack. Even though I was scared, a feeling of curiosity was taking over me. Reaching out to brush a few flower plants next to the rock away, a feeling of dizziness immediately hits me. I saw human fingers crushed under the stone and they were decomposing. I screamed out in fear, almost to a panic attack, crawled out to yell at my friends to quickly call the police. The police arrived and immediately searched the scene. Max and I stayed behind to give our statements to the police, while Ethan took Anna and Mary home first because they were so panicked. The police found out that there was a body crushed underneath and immediately sent the tow to move the stone away. Seeing the entire scene unfold, I was shocked to the core by the corpse underneath. The body was no longer in one piece. It was decomposing. The stench and sight was horrifying to witness. The police thanked Max and I for the cooperation, then told us to go home first. Maybe during construction the stone was placed in a different position and collapsed over the poor worker while he was inspecting the project. So my feeling about the stone's strange position is correct. The man's body was processed and returned to his family. That stone was later demolished by the park management board and a flower garden was planted in its place. To this day, that scene still haunts me. Extracurriculars now brings me the dreads. I always imagined that I would discover another terrible thing around there.